It sounds like we haven't seen the last of Venom. There are many hints that Insomniac has bigger plans for the villain that was introduced in Spider-Man 2, starting with some new info from San Francisco Fan Expo. This video will of course contain spoilers for Spider-Man 2, so keep that in mind, but yeah, there was a Q&A session with Miles' actor Najee Jater and Tony Todd, the voice of Venom. And Tony had some interesting things to say, which we know thanks to Spidey content creator Evan Villarca, who attended the panel and reported that Insomniac only used 10% of his Venom dialogue in Marvel Spider-Man 2, which could mean that there is still 90% of Venom waiting for us somewhere in the future. Because let's not forget, Insomniac said that a Venom spin-off game is an option if fans want it. And I think we can all agree that that playable Venom section was awesome and way too short, so I'm definitely up for some more symbiote action. You can already see the potential thanks to the new out of bounds glitch found by Reddit user Under the Hood. They were able to free roam with Venom and actually trigger crimes and smashing up goons, as this monster looks like an absolute blast. We'll leave a link with an explanation for the glitch in the video description for if you want to try it yourself. And now that more details about development are surfacing, we can see that Insomniac also had a lot of different plans for Venom that didn't all make the cut. A lot of artists for the game have posted their artwork on ArtStation, including this scene where MJ saves the Daily Bugle staff during the symbiote outbreak. And speaking of MJ, there's another piece of art where she's shown in a more black and white Venom look, because as we learned from interviews, MJ originally wasn't going to be Scream, so that's what we're seeing here. There are a lot of pieces as well that show a different version of the story where Harry's transformation into Venom would have been more gradual. We can see him partially venomized here, then later talking to Norman as he's trying to get stronger, and then finally him fighting Oscorp in front of his mother's grave, almost in full Venom form. There's also artwork of a more venomized Peter fighting Kraven, a massive symbiote hive mind that we never got to see, and I'm assuming there are even more concepts and ideas that we don't know about that can definitely be used in a Venom spin-off. But the most interesting Venom related piece of art is definitely this one by concept artist Daryl Mandrick. It showcases a ton of attacks for Venom that didn't make the final cut. Some are a bit more straightforward, like a giant claw swipe or a tentacle ball, which looks similar to Peter's current symbiote strike ability. Similarly, the concept art for the ranged attack looks pretty much the same as Peter's current symbiote punch, but there are some really cool new attacks here too, like this giant bite where Venom's head grows to almost the size of its full body. Definitely big enough for a one-shot kill on most enemies, I would think. And while you are able to grab and thrash around enemies, in this concept art we see Venom holding two cars as a melee weapon. Yeah, we need that Venom game as soon as possible. I want this in my life. Also interesting is that it notes that this car throwing variant of the symbiote is listed as Giant Venom, whereas there is another piece of art labeled as a skinny form. It of course makes sense that Venom needs this to enter indoor locations, as its base form is pretty chunky, but the artwork also notes it can be used for stealth. So then the skinny form could be akin to Miles' camouflage to quickly move through an area unseen before you unleash your full power. And Giant Venom could be an ultimate ability like Symbiote Surge, which powers you up even more so you're able to pick up and throw around even heavier objects. So yeah, while we only got two special attacks and a grab mechanic in the end, a lot of things were considered for Venom's moveset, and those ideas could resurface if we get a standalone title with the symbiote as the main character. But while it seems like there is a lot of evidence for a Venom standalone title already, let's make sure we consider all angles. Of course, if you liked the video so far, leave a like and subscribe to not miss our next Spider-Man video. Because we also know that Insomniac had a lot of different plans for the symbiote storyline that didn't make the final version of the game. Carnage is a good example of this, as in the current version of the game, his character is only set up for a different story, one I hope we see in DLC or a different project. But yeah, earlier drafts did include the full Carnage story as side content for Spider-Man 2. And while I doubt we'll see the next idea in a future installment, it is still really cool to learn there were also drafts of the story where Miles would end up with Venom. This was also confirmed by Tony Todd, who noted that some of the lines he recorded were for scrapped scenes when Miles had the symbiote. Considering how much of a powerhouse his own Venom powers already make him, Miles with a symbiote would be absolutely insane. And I'm pretty sure that Insomniac has been thinking about that too, because when asked in an interview if the team ever considered giving Miles the symbiote, narrative director director Ben Arfman said, "I'm going to plead the fifth," which basically means he refuses to answer that, and that's a bit suspicious. Considering the question is about Spider-Man 2, just saying flat out no would have been fine too, as we already know it's not in the game. So it could hint at something later down the line, and I wanted to know what that would look like. From what I could find, Miles' experience with symbiotes in the comics usually comes from him being infected by Carnage, but that does lead to him forming 2 extra pairs of arms even when he later gains control over the symbiote. And Carnage is still in the game, so while the idea is pretty crazy, it could still happen. Although considering how the current Carnage storyline is tied to Wraith and therefore Peter, it's more likely that it involves him and not Miles. And speaking of crazy ideas, we know from creative director Brian Intihar that the team also considered a Venomized version of Sandman, but unfortunately that never made it past the concept stage. But one big question that needs to be answered if the team does decide to bring Venom back is, well, how to bring Venom back. During the final mission of the game, Peter ends up destroying the Venom symbiote with his anti-venom powers, and while we know other symbiotes exist, again, we can thank Carnage for that, to my knowledge the symbiote that turned someone into Venom was tied to Harry. Could be that I am wrong and that there is a way where its consciousness can transfer to other symbiotes, but even if that is not the case, not all hope is lost. After some digging, I found some very interesting info on another symbiote called Mania. Mania is pretty special because it is a clone created from Venom's DNA, specifically from its tongue. And I forgot about this, but during the fight with Kraven, part of Venom's tongue is cut off and left on the ground. As noted by Who's Chaos, you can even see it wriggling around on the ground in your second round of the fight, but after that it is gone. So if say Oscorp managed to recover it and started doing research on how to clone it, that could lead to the creation of a new Venom, which would then solve the problem presented by the game's ending. So yeah, I definitely don't think it's over for Venom just yet. But as I said earlier, it is important to consider all angles. And while all these ideas we mentioned could totally be reused for a new standalone project starring Venom, it's also possible that they are just scrapped lines and ideas from a prior script. Going back to that earlier quote, even though they only used 10% of the lines that Tony recorded as Venom, that does not guarantee we will see the rest elsewhere. What it does show is that the studio is super passionate about the symbiote storyline and that there are a lot of unexplored gameplay ideas and story elements. And I can't help but fantasize about what a Venom game would look like, and I think there's one game that perfectly captures the spirit of playing as a powerful anti-hero, which is Prototype. In case you don't remember, in this game you play as someone who's infected by a strange virus that gives you superpowers. You rampage your way through a partially infected New York with monsters and the military on your tail while unlocking new uses for your powers, like turning your arms into different weapons. I don't know about you, but the thought of something like this with Insomniac's level of polish and smooth gameplay really gets me excited. What's also cool about Prototype is that it includes a very unique form of social stealth. You can absorb other people, stealing their knowledge and their appearance, which for instance lets you disguise yourself as a soldier to infiltrate a military base. And while Spidey's symbiote might not be that advanced, we have seen it turn into a suit to sneak Peter into a hunter stronghold. So it could be a really cool way to implement social stealth, as sneaking around on web lines is of course not going to be an option for Venom. The only question that's now left is who will become the next Venom, as I think it's unlikely Harry takes up the mantle again. Always curious to hear your takes on this, so let me know in the comments. Leave a like if you enjoyed the video, subscribe if you don't want to miss the next one, and watch our previous video on more teases from the game's ending by clicking on the screen. And we of course end every video with our Photomode Showcase, so if you'd like to be featured in the next one, drop your shots in our Discord, link will be in the pinned comment. Now let's throw it over to Joyce to talk us through these amazing shots.
Yes, thanks Dennis. First up we've got ICXRIX, who took this awesome shot of Miles Morales swinging around New York City, passing Radio City Hall. Love the chosen point of view here.
And you also get bonus points for picking my favorite suit for Miles, so...
Moving on to Kishi with a darker side of Peter, wearing the Arachnite suit while on the hunt for enemies with the moonlight in the back and the extra spotlight. It gives a very Moon Knight kind of feel to Spider-Man.
I also love how the glowing eyes are like protruding from under the hood. It's very menacing.
And my favorite of the three is from QS42, who got the timing just right as Miles shoots its evolved Venom powers to attack Venom as they try to make their move on him. Great shot, and thanks for sharing.
And thanks to you as well for selecting these. We will see you in the next one. Goodbye.
Goodbye.